Hi students, welcome to the second part of the lesson, Two Stories About Flying. So in this session we are going to discuss the story The Black Aeroplane, which was written by Frederick Forsyth. Now let's know something about this writer. He was born on 25th August 1938 in Ashford, Kent, England, and he was educated at Tonbridge School and later joined the University of Granada in Spain. He joined the RAF and became a jet fighter pilot. He became a journalist and joined the BBC in 1965, where he served as an assistant diplomatic correspondent. Now, let me draw a sketch of this story in your mind. Now, since the earliest times, humans have dreamt of conquering the skies. And here is a story about flying. So the writer is a pilot and he describes a unique but mysterious experience during his flight from Paris to London. Now he is lost in storm clouds. Does he arrive safely? Who helps him? It's all about this story, and let's see whether we get the answers for them after discussing the story. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch 1:30 in the morning. So looking forward is to wait eagerly. So here what happened is, it was night time when the sky was clear and the stars could be seen twinkling, and the pilot, that is the writer, felt peace in being above a country that had fallen asleep while he was flying over France to England. And it was 1:30 in the morning and he was fantasizing about holidaying with his family. I should call Paris control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on the radio and said, Paris control, Dakota DS-088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. The voice from the radio answered me immediately, DS-088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS-088, over. So here, when the aeroplane was in France, the pilot thought of informing the Paris control personnel about its presence and for instructions. And at that time, the lights from the Paris city were blaring at him. And he informed the control agency, to which they replied with further instructions on directions. And the control room at Paris instructed him to turn 12 degrees towards the west. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. So the compass is an instrument for telling the direction. So what happened is, after receiving the instructions, the pilot geared up and followed them while putting the last fuel tank into the operation. And all this time he was dreaming about his time with his family. And then he started thinking about having a satisfactory breakfast at the destination point. That is, and he was calm as everything was going as planned. And he felt that this flight was an easy flight. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. I'll take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. So here what happened is, now the plane had crossed Paris, and when he started seeing the clouds in the sky, the presence of clouds made it unsafe to travel by air because there were chances of storm. and they were so huge and dark that the pilot compared them with the Black Mountains. He knew he couldn't pass them as it was impossible to go above them or escape them with the amount of fuel that was left in the last tank. So the right decision would have been to fly back to Paris safely, but the pilot's decision making was clouded by his wish to meet his family. So he desperately wanted to be with his family and have their English breakfast he had been dreaming of all that day. That he took the risk, so he took the risk of not going back. He headed the plane right into the storm. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. So here what happened is it was so dark because of the storm that nothing was visible outside the plane. And he started losing control of the aeroplane also. The compass and other instruments had also stopped working because of the bad weather. And he became helpless. Paris control, can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm. Then in the black clouds quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turned towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved us to shake. Follow me, he was saying, follow me. He knows that I am lost, I thought. He is trying to help me. So here what happened is he tried calling the Paris Control Agency who had helped him earlier but couldn't get connected because of the weather. In the midst of nowhere, when everything has failed, he saw a ray of hope when he saw another aeroplane. He felt relieved when he saw another pilot's face and willingness to help him escape the storm. So he talked to himself that the other pilot is very kind as he knew that they were lost and was trying to help him out. So he turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. After half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. Now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. I was starting to feel frightened again. But then he started to go down and I followed through the storm. Suddenly I came out of the clouds and saw 2 long straight lines of lights in front of me. It was a runway, an airport. I was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere. So here runway is actually the narrow strip where the plane lands on or takes off from. So what happened here is the other pilot actually took his plane ahead of the lost aeroplane to make it easier for them to follow, while the writer followed him like an obedient child. And he was also panicked because there was very less amount of fuel left, and it was only then that he started coming out of the storm and he could see the runway to land his plane safely. When he turned to thank the other pilot, he realized that the plane that helped him had disappeared as soon as he came out of the storm. So as soon as he came out of the storm, he could find the runway, that is an airport. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say thank you. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Another aeroplane? Up there in this storm? No other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. Radar is nothing but it's a system for detecting the presence, direction, distance and spread of aircraft or ships or anything by sending out pulses of radio waves which are reflected off the object back to the source. So here what happened is the author did not That is, the writer did not know where he had landed but was afraid of leaving his plane unattended. So he headed straight into the control room to ask about the other pilot. To his utmost surprise, the lady informed him that there was no other plane in the sky except his because of the bad weather. He was left astonished with a lot of questions unanswered in his mind. So let's sum up what we have learned, children. The moon was coming in the clear sky. The narrator was flying his old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England, and he contacted the Paris control for instructions. So he was asked to turn 12 degrees west, and he thought that he would be in time for English breakfast. Paris was 150 kilometers behind him, so he saw the clouds in the sky, and they were storm clouds. They looked like black mountains standing in front of him, so he could not avoid by flying up and over them. So he didn't have enough fuel to fly around this north and south. So he thought of going back to Paris, but he wanted to go home for breakfast. So the narrator took the risk and he flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. And inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. He couldn't see anything outside. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted into the air. He looked at the compass, it was dead. The other instruments were also suddenly dead. So he tried the radio to contact Paris control. There was no answer. He didn't know where he was. So he was in a very hopeless situation. So that time he was lost in the storm. And suddenly he saw another aeroplane. The black aeroplane was flying next to him. He could see the pilot's face. He was glad to see another person follow me, he said, waving his one hand, and the narrator followed him like an obedient child. So here what happened is he followed the black aeroplane for half an hour, and now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes only. Then he started going down. He saw 2 straight lines of lights before him. It was a runway, that is an airport. So he cried in joy and he turned to look for his friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. And he wanted to say thank you to his rescuer. So after landing, he went to the control tower and he asked the lady where he was. He also asked who the other pilot was, and she looked at him and she looked at him strangely and then laughed. She replied that there was no other aeroplane which was flying that night, and she could see only his aeroplane on the radar, who helped the narrator to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio and without any more fuel in his tanks. This remained an unsolved mystery because we never know who helped this narrator. It was a mystery. What are the unanswered questions we get from this story? Who was the other pilot who helped the writer, and where was that black aeroplane later? Who helped him? Who helped the writer? And where did the pilot disappear later on? And how did he come with this little fuel in his tank and reach England? Were some of the unanswered questions. So hope you all enjoyed this story. Have a great day, children. Thank you.